What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 5th video on this channel. I'm just gonna get straight into things because we have so much to talk about in regards to Tropical Storm Ida. I know that sounds crazy, but it has formed already, and it is going to strengthen. I would like to just state before I start the video that my opinions are my opinions. I'm going to make a lot of them during this video, and I'm going to say a lot of what I think could or will happen. For official information that you should follow, please look at the National Hurricane Center and National Weather Service offices that are local to your area. Link to the National Hurricane Center will be in the description due to the urgency of Tropical Storm Ida. Okay, let's move on and let's go to our National Hurricane Center map. Okay, I know one thing you're going to be surprised about. Not only do we have Ida already, but look at this. Look what came back from basically the dead. Invest 98L. And boy, did it come back. Yesterday I was saying there's a good chance it won't form. There's a good chance it will just end up being maybe a tropical depression at most. Nope. It came back and it's alive. It organized overnight and spawned a bunch of deep convection. Turns out the environment ahead of it will be more favorable than we initially thought. And yeah, as you can see, the National Hurricane Center raised its probabilities from a 20/30 to a 60/70, and it now has higher probabilities than 97L, which I think still will form. I think all three of these will form. I think, well, obviously Ida has already formed, but I think this one, 97L, will form, and I think there's a good chance 98L will form too now. It was a big surprise that 98L came back from the dead like that. Okay, let's move on and look at our cone for Tropical Storm Ida. So, here we go. As you can see, right now we're here right by Jamaica, and we're a 40-mile-per-hour tropical storm. So, as we go forward, you can see that this will be a tropical storm all the way up until Cuba, according to the NWS. That's what they're thinking. They're thinking it will be a tropical storm all the way up until Cuba. And I would agree with that. I would say there's a higher probability that it will be a tropical storm at landfall in Cuba than it will be a hurricane. Right now they're projecting a 65-mile-per-hour landfall for the Cuba landfall. And yeah, let's keep going forward. After it makes landfall in Cuba, it could weaken just a little bit, but they expect it to rebound quickly. And now we're at 70 right here. And then let's continue going forward. Now over here at 2 p.m. Saturday, we're at 80. So just really quick intensification. National Hurricane Center actually expects rapid intensification. Then we're already at 100. Yes, 100 at 2 a.m. Saturday, so ridiculous amounts of strengthening, and then landfall right by New Orleans at 110. However, I am not going to lie, and the National Hurricane Center mentioned this. This landfall may be at major hurricane status. It might not be at 110. It might be at 115. It could be at 120. It could even be higher than that. I think right now what I would personally forecast would be an 115 to 120 mile per hour landfall. However, again, the National Hurricane Center projects a 110 mile per hour landfall. This is only their second or third advisory, so the fact that they're already projecting in 110 mile per hour landfall is quite scary. Usually that goes up as the forecasts and the advisories continue to come out. So I would not be surprised at if the next advisory they are forecasting in 115 mile per hour landfall as a Category 3 major hurricane. I would not. All right, let's move forward. So here's our chances of tropical storm winds. Don't disregard this big thing over here. This is an Eastern Pacific storm. However, we're focusing on the Atlantic for now. However, really quickly, this Eastern Pacific storm could be a threat over here to Cabo, San Lucas, and the Baja California Peninsula. The National Hurricane Center does project a hurricane landfall for the Baja California Peninsula over there. So if you're over there right now, I would be watching that system very closely. However, we're watching our major threat, which is Tropical Storm Ida, and right here. So as we continue to go forward, you can see a massive area of potential tropical storm winds. And over in New Orleans, in New Orleans, you can actually see there is a 60 to 70 mile per hour chance of tropical storm winds. For it being the third advisory, this is not good. This is not good that the NHC is this confident in tropical storm winds and in a potentially major system. It's scary how much confidence this system has. Here's our potential for hurricane force winds. This will 100% change, and it has a very good chance of going up. I would not be surprised if by the time we have a few advisories from now, this whole area is in maybe even 50 to 60, and then we could even have this area over here in like, I don't even know, maybe even 70 to 80 a few advisories from now. It's going to go up. That is a guarantee. It's also going to change a little bit. You could have the main area shift a little that way, shift a little that way. You're never going to know. But things will change. But the main thing that's set in stone and that I want to point out is this has a very high potential of being a major storm. And it needs to be watched very closely. This storm is not something to mess around with. This is a potentially major hurricane. I'm going to say it right now. We could be seeing a major hurricane at landfall with this. And the word needs to get out. It needs to get out. If you'd like to or if you'd like to have more updates on this channel, you can subscribe, like, put on notifications, whatever. That's not the point. That's if you want to be notified on this channel. But please, either share this video or tell your friends that live in Louisiana or Eastern Texas or Alabama or Mississippi what is going on, because this needs to be known. There's a very good chance that this could be a major system at landfall. All right. Here's our ocean heat content, which we go over in every video, and I'm going to make it quick because really it hasn't changed any from yesterday. You can see, which isn't good, look at that massive area of ridiculous ocean heat content. Right now this thing's right here, and it's going to move just like this. It's just going to move like that right over all that ocean heat content, that ridiculous ocean heat content, and it's going right over this. It's going right over that. It is not going to be a good scenario. I'm saying it right now. It's not going to be a good scenario. All right, here's our sea surface temperatures. Also hasn't changed very much, but we can see over here we have at least 31 degree temperatures. Over here we have 32. And once again, the system is going to do this. It's going to go right through that. It's just everything is in favor for intensification. You can see our entire area of super warm temperatures over here. The whole entire thing that I've showed in past videos. So, yeah, it's not a good scenario. We're getting into peak hurricane season, and it's bad. This storm has potential to be bad. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. All right, let's move on. Here's our shear. This has changed quite a bit from yesterday. Our system is right about here right now, so it is going to move in a bit of a higher shear environment just tonight. However, all of this shear, as I've been saying for the past few videos, and which is actually occurring, is going to move and lift out of the area. And you can see the Gulf. Well, there's no shear, and that's why we're talking about how explosive the Gulf is. The Gulf is rocket fuel for this system right now. It is rocket fuel. All right, let's see our shear tendency. And, well, this is not good, because look at this. The whole Gulf, once again, and as we're saying, the rocket fuel, the entire Gulf has gone down. We have spots that have gone down 10 knots of shear. 10 knots of shear have gone down in parts of the Gulf, and the Ida is just going to move right over that. All of this is going to continue to go down, and it's not going to be good in the coming days. It won't. Everything is in favor for intensification. All right, let's move on to satellite imagery and then intensity guidance. All right, so here is our satellite imagery, and you can see it's now night, so it's just going to be pitch black here in a few frames. However, before it turns into night, you can see all these convection blow-ups everywhere, and actually, it's so evident its center right here. It's so evident, the center. You can just see it spinning. You can just see it spinning rapidly. That's what hurricanes do. But it's just getting more and more organized as time goes on. Let's move down and go to infrared. Or sorry, yeah, infrared. Oh my god. And you can also see that spin right here. It's, again, hard not to see it. Right there. You can see the spin. You have most of the convection kind of to the south of the center. However, you can see convection is starting to blow up near the center again. And I think once we hit Dmax tonight and it can fire more convection and sustain the convection even more, it is going to be ugly. I think this thing has a good chance of maybe even rapidly intensifying in the Caribbean. It will most definitely rapidly intensify in the Gulf, but we'll see what it does in the Caribbean. All right, let's go to our tropical intensity guidance for. Okay, so here's our intensity guidance for Ida, and you can see that right now most models are projecting a Category 2, with some at Category 3 and some at Category 1. The models that are projecting something like this, it barely even getting to tropical storm status, disregard. I'm going to say it. Disregard those models. That is not going to happen. This thing will almost certainly be a hurricane. It will almost certainly be a hurricane at some point. So the models that are barely putting this at tropical storm strength, which is only 2 models, I disregard that. That's not going to happen. You can see very clearly that the majority of models are putting this at hurricane strength. And those are the models I would listen to right now. All right. Here is our track guidance, and track has become a lot more consistent now than it was at this time yesterday. I mean, it's pretty clear the track, you can see it, but here's our center. Here is our track. We're going to go and continue going, and then it could deviate a little bit and go into that part of Louisiana. However, it's looking, due to the center being farther north than it originally was supposed to be, that it will most likely just go straight through central Louisiana. However, it could go more towards the New Orleans area. We'll see what it does. However, if it does go through, like, kind of take a path like this, that would most likely have it not as strong as if it took a path kind of like this, because it'd have a lot less time over water. However, if it still took a path like this, where it basically goes over New Orleans, it'd still most likely be a major hurricane. Like, there's really nothing stopping it, no matter what path it takes. It'd have to completely turn around and go back through the Caribbean for it not to be a hurricane. And that's obviously not gonna happen. That's physically not possible. But yeah. Let's move on to 97L. And then we're obviously going to come back to Tropical Storm Ida later in the video. This isn't it for Ida. It's just I want to get to the other storms before we come back to this one. Alright, here we can see 97L. I'm going to actually make it pretty quick because I want to get back to Ida. Because that's quite obviously the main threat. 98L and 97L should stay away from land, and they shouldn't be too strong. So I'd like to focus more on Ida, since that is a major threat to the Gulf Coast states. But here we see that 97L it still has that nice spin and rotation that it did have yesterday. You can see the counterclockwise rotation. And you can see that it has a lot of deep convection firing over its center, which is pretty normal, but it didn't really have that yesterday. Maybe it looks a bit better than it did yesterday, but overall, it looks about the same. It hasn't really changed too much. NHC actually decreased probabilities for the 5-day with this. I don't necessarily know why, but hey, they're the pros, I'm not. Alright, let's move on to our intensity guidance for 97L. So, here is 97L's intensity guidance. It's gone down from yesterday. Yesterday it was at a mid-range category 1, a lot of the models. Now we're at a mid-range tropical storm at peak. Some models don't even have this getting to tropical storm status. I wouldn't be surprised, however. I think it will. I think it'll probably end up somewhere in this general region, maybe at lowest around here and at highest around here. But we'll have to wait and find out. But that's your intensity guidance for 97L. Let's go to our track guidance. It's remained the exact same since we started doing this. It's going to turn this way where it strengthens, and then it's going to either turn this way, stall, go that way, stall, go this way. But the general idea is that it's just going to turn to the east and then do something after it turns to the east and strengthens, where it will weaken and die. Here, let's move on to 98L. Okay, here's 98L. 98L is such a weird storm. First, it looked like it was going to form. Then it looks like it didn't. Now it looks like it will again. You can see it looks way better than it did yesterday. Here's our spin and our rotation. Here we have deep convection bursting all over the place. Ton of moisture, ton of energy. This thing just won't stop producing deep convection. Ever since it spawned, it hasn't stopped with deep convection. Overall, looks pretty good on satellite imagery. However, it's not our main focus right now. IDA is. So let's move on to our intensity guidance for 90. Okay, so here we can see 98L's model intensity guidance. And if I showed you this if I showed you this without this part up here, you'd probably think this was 97L's intensity guidance because it looks weirdly similar to yesterday's intensity guidance for 97L. We can see a lot of the models have this peaking in the tropical storm range, with 2 models peaking it in the hurricane range. I don't think hurricane will happen with this. However, I do think a tropical storm's it's possible. Yesterday I was saying it was unlikely, now I'll say it's possible. I wouldn't say it's likely, but I'd say it's definitely possible. If I were to make an intensity guidance, I'd probably go somewhere around, like, there, and then we drop it off a little bit. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking for that. Let's move on to 98L's track guidance. And here's the reason I'm thinking this won't be too strong, and this is the reason yesterday I was thinking it wouldn't even really form. We have quite a bit of dry air around here, quite a bit of shear, in just everywhere, to be totally honest with you. So it doesn't have the best environment, but it still has an environment that would allow it to form, and it is persisting and producing deep convection and organizing. So, it looks pretty decent, and it looks like it probably will end up forming at some point in the 5-day period. All right, let's move on to our model guidance, and this is where we're going to turn back to IDA. And this is where things will get very important, so please follow along. All right. We're moving forward, and let's go back a little bit. We have a landfall of the GFS at tropical storm strength, most likely, maybe even borderline hurricane strength. We have max winds up here at 81.2 knots. However, this is 850 millibar height, so it is a bit off the ground. However, this would probably be nearing hurricane strength as 850 millibar height. That this would probably translate to about 70 to 75 miles per hour at landfall. And then let's continue to go forward. And boom, you can see how fast this thing strengthens. We go from 988 on Cuba to 979 that quickly. And now we're up to 93 knots, 850 millibar height. So we're definitely in the category 1 to probably even 2 range at this point. Let's continue to go forward. Now we're at 968. 107 knots as we're approaching Louisiana, 967 as we're approaching Louisiana, 958 as we're approaching, making landfall in Louisiana with 125 knots winds. This would probably translate to about borderline category 4 strength. And let's continue to go. We make landfall. Basically, this is a very bad scenario because this would be landfall practically right on top of New Orleans. The GFS has held tight with this solution for a while, where it makes landfall right on top of New Orleans. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I'm hoping it doesn't make landfall at all, but obviously it will make landfall. That's a given at this point. and unfortunately, there's nothing stopping it from strengthening, but making landfall in New Orleans would just be devastating. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but let's continue to go forward. We can see it weakens pretty quickly, and now we're at 998 as we're approaching Tennessee. Some rainfall, maybe a couple tornadoes, and then we go and boom, it's dying. Let's go to the H Wharf model and 9L. Okay, let's go back. So boom, let's start. We can see it's going forward. We're approaching Cuba right now. We're at 1,000 millibars with max wind of 70 knots. I don't necessarily know how that would happen. I'm gonna assume it's having a very high bias for pressure. That's pretty odd. I've never seen a 1,003 millibar storm with 70 knot winds. That's pretty weird. But as we continue to go forward, we can see we're down to 978 with 107 knot winds. And we're continuing to go forward, 973 with 119 knot winds, 971, 120 knot winds, 969, 128 knot winds, 966, 127 knot winds, 960, 121. We're deepening, yet we're going down in wind speed. I don't... 957 with 113 knot winds. I don't know why it's going to... Okay, now we're at 130 knot winds. So just disregard this part of this. I don't know why it's going down and up with winds as the pressure's falling dramatically. That's pretty odd. But we're at 956 millibars at landfall. 952 millibars at landfall, sorry. And then we go forward, and it actually stays pretty strong. Well inland. We're up into Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana border now at 986 millibars with 69 knot winds. That's pretty... that would maybe some brown ocean effect there, but, we'd have to see. But this would be a central Louisiana landfall, and you can see how the farther west it goes, the stronger it gets. We had the GFS making landfall right here in New Orleans at 958 millibars. However, the H Wharf makes landfall just a bit west at 952. The farther west it goes, the longer it has over waters and the stronger it will get. Let's go to the H Mon now. We can see 9L. Boom. Let's go forward. Bring this back a little bit. And let's go forward. So you can see our landfall in Cuba around 988 knots. This would definitely be a hurricane strength. So it agrees somewhat with the GFS, and then it weakens quite a bit over Cuba. And then we continue to go forward in 968 millibar landfall in Louisiana with 91 knot winds. So yeah, that's what that would be like. And this one makes landfall pretty much exactly where the GFS had it, making landfall right near New Orleans. This is kind of what the NHC is running with, I'd assume, because similar intensity and similar place in landfall. So yeah, that's what the HMON looks like. Now let's take just a wide look at the Atlantic. Let's go to the Euro, and let's go back quite a bit. Alrighty. Okay, so let's go forward. You can see down here we have our Eastern Pacific system, but we're not really watching that. That would be pretty bad for Cabo San Lucas. I don't necessarily know if it's going to get that strong, but let's watch the Atlantic, because that's what the video's on. And we have a 973 millibar landfall in Louisiana. This has been so incredibly consistent for the past, 5 days. Crazy consistent. This has a landfall basically in between the GFS and HMON, so right near New Orleans. That's 3 models with a near New Orleans landfall. That would not be a good scenario. Let's continue going forward. And once again, it has this system way later near September 5th. We're not really going to talk about this too much, but it has been showing this for a week. And the GFS has caught on to it now, too. I don't even understand how it's been showing this system for so long and how it's been so consistent. But that will be something to watch later down the road. But there is a tropical wave in Africa that could form into that. We'll have to watch and see. Luckily, it doesn't appear that that would have any threat to land at this time. But right now, we're watching our current threats, which are Ida and really nothing else. Those are just some nice eye candy, which will end up probably happening. We have a 97L around here, 98L around here. Actually, the opposite way. 98L around here, 97L around here. Ida around here. They move like this. They move like that. And this one will move like that. Okay, let's move on to our final statement and closing statement. All right. Alrighty, so here is our points to note in our closing segment. Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi need to keep a close eye on Ida and start preparing and reviewing hurricane safety plan, whether you're going to possibly evacuate, whether you're going to stay and ride it out. If you're told to evacuate, please evacuate. Do not stay and ride it out. This is not a storm you want to do that in. This will most likely not be just a week, maybe Cat 1 hurricane or tropical storm. This could be a major hurricane, and there's a good chance it will be at landfall. We are not official. We're here to inform, but for official information and official evacuation warnings, notices, orders, please go to your National Weather Service, your state and local government, and your National Hurricane Center, the beautiful National Hurricane Center. 98L formation looking much more likely than it did yesterday. Ida is continuing to strengthen and will most likely be a major hurricane at some point this weekend. 97L looking likely to become a tropical storm, however, will stay out to sea. Alrighty, thanks for watching the video, guys. We'll be back tomorrow with more updates.